Okay. We are live. Guys, thank you for joining today. Realize that this is extremely short notice, particularly because we just sent out an email only last night, maybe less than 24 hours ago now. And yeah, we've been meaning to do one of these for the last week or so. Unfortunately, it got postponed given how busy we have been, but nonetheless, great to have you all on board now. And I can see we've got a bunch of questions here, so excited to answer those and keep them coming. I'm going to get as much done as we can in the next 45 minutes or so. All right, so we've allocated a bit of time for this, but keep them rolling in. Now, I'll kick it off. This isn't Ask Me Anything, after all. We'll go through the list of questions here, starting with Mango's Running, asking, do you ever plan to set up a business location in Vancouver? Not at the moment. Right now, so we are based, as you can see, we're actually in Singapore. You probably can't see out the window just as yet. We're based in Singapore from a research point of view. Now, Piccolo Research started here about 12 months ago. And since then, also, we have obviously started Astronaut at the same time. And you know, right now we spend most of our time within Singapore. There is of course a certain amount of travel that we do into Hong Kong and more recently Switzerland for Astronaut as well. So as for Vancouver, I'm not too sure. We'll have to reevaluate that one in the next few months, I think. Okay. Next question we've got here from Mr. Heston. Great, okay. What's the worst case scenario with Astronaut? And what are your plans if ICOs get a lot of bad publicity? And is that what may happen? It's a really good question. Look, our view on ICOs at the moment is that it is a very fast changing market. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And right now we're in this, I suppose, this state where there's a lot of regulatory change. Every single month we're seeing another country come out and not necessarily posing new regulations or anything like that, but more so bringing out more uncertainty into the market, which has obviously caused a lot of volatility at times. Remember what happened with China and the SEC, etc. And I can see that there are more questions throughout the list here that also cover some of these things as well. But in essence, we believe that ICOs are not going to go away anytime soon. If anything, there's going to be more regulation that is enforced on them. But outside of that, we don't believe that this is simply what you would say a flash in the pan, because the impact that tokens have, particularly within the market for capital raising, and of course the use cases for them, is exponential. And we see that day to day with some of the opportunities that are coming out. We don't see the ICO market going away. What we do see is basically a changing of the market. I think that the market is going to be getting a lot smarter. The quality of the ICOs that are successful are going to be a lot better as well. And you know, from our research, we think about when we started Piccolo Research a year ago, and we have a look at the companies that were looking to list then as ICO and on new token sales and now. And obviously the volume is just exponential as to how many we're seeing every month, every single week at the moment. And I think that has been the biggest difference, is that ICOs aren't necessarily getting a bad rap. It's more so the thing that there's a lot of them. And so there's always going to be a few in there that are going to be looking negative within the whole ecosystem, whether they fail or get hacked, etc. So in no way do we see ICOs going away, and hence why we started Astronaut. They are here for the long term. It's more a matter of being able to really conduct thorough due diligence and knowing you know, which one's the best in this evolving market. Okay, cool. So thanks for the question, Mr. Heston. David's asked, how much do you plan to raise in total? So David, we started out our journey with Astronaut having to put, or issue, I should say, a certain amount of tokens. We started with it would have been a full issuance of 30 million, and then allocations out of that. So crowd sale was about 20 million or so. In that time, we have now subsequently raised closer to about 3 million. Now the difference is that we've got a very different business model as to what we do. We aren't building something as Astronaut. We do have our investor tools and our portfolio, etc. But for us in this sort of structure, we don't have the operating costs that are associated with having to build a new blockchain technology. And so what I'm trying to say is that our minimum can be 2 million, for example. And we can employ the exact same strategy with $2 million as we can with $50 million. So that's sort of the metric that we're using. And this doesn't apply to all ICOs. I mean, there are many ICOs out there that, for example, if they were to only raise, say, $10 million, and their development says that it's going to be 15 to commercialize, then that's a serious problem. But as Astronaut, we don't have those costs. It's simply redistribution of Ethereum, which comprises our business model. I hope that answers that question. Okay, going down the list, we've got a bunch here. Some good questions. Okay. Let's go to next one. How would you score Astronaut ICO if you looked at it from the outside as a third person? See, this is a good one. We actually had a number of people ask if Piccolo Research could score Astronaut. So it's almost like scoring ourselves, which, yeah, we thought about it for a moment, and we thought, well, there could be some bias here. And you know, we have talked to some of the other ratings agencies as well to do the same to us. The way that we would score, if I had to sum it up, it would be this. And I'm not going to give you a specific rating because I won't be biased, but I would say that the hardest thing about Astronaut is that we are not a hyped up ICO. Okay. Now, we are not building anything specifically today that by the time we hit an exchange, our token price is going to go up 10,000%. Okay. I think that that's one of the biggest differences, is that we can't have that level of hype associated with us. Now, what we then invest in could obviously go up 10,000%, but us as a token, we don't hold that hype aspect. And that is the difference between, in this instance, looking at a investment that is short term as opposed to long term or medium term. And I would say that for those investors that are getting into Astronaut and buying our tokens, and thank you very much for that, I would say don't have the expectation that we're doing 10 times your 10 times gain inside of 1 month, because it simply won't happen. And it's better that I'm honest with you out there, and we have said that the whole time. But what we invest in, that's another story. Okay, so in terms of us, we are without a doubt a long-term hold. I'll let you decide how many stars that gets. Okay, great question. Thank you for that. Next question is, how do you source ICOs to review? This is a good question, and you know what? It has been getting harder. When we started this journey, it was, you know, maybe 10, 20 a month. And as of late, as you know, that there's upwards of, you know, 80 to 90 private sales, pre-ICOs, ICOs coming to market. And it's a lot. It's getting a lot harder because there is a certain amount of analysis that you can do, which is automated. So we do use algorithms, and that's mainly structured around things like sentiment analysis, you know, traffic, etc. But the issue with that type of analysis, which is why we don't completely agree with it, it's just a filtering mechanism, is that all of that analysis that is automated generally applies to hype only. Okay, so it applies to those things that are being talked about and have a lot of followers on Twitter, etc. And that gives you an idea of community support. Okay, it gives you an idea of are people looking at this, and is there going to be sufficient liquidity, which is good. But you can't purely base research or even selection and filtering off that purely. And that's one of the issues that we have. Effectively, for us, we have had to increase our number of analysts that are able to go to that second stage of doing preliminary fundamental analysis to do that. And to answer your question even further, how do we then filter for that? Is really a number of things. And it comes down to one of the key ones in the first instance is actually capital structure. And by that, I mean, how many tokens are available, and how many are being contributed to the token sale versus management, etc. That is one of the first things that we look at. For us, tells us right from the start whether this is going to be a good deal that we continue to investigate, or if it's something that we should just move on from. Okay? Great. Next question. We have, when is the deadline for the 10% off sale? I believe it's Monday, or it could be Tuesday. I'll have to check on that. Our sale actually ends completely on Wednesday. So I would say get in quick. Rocket Salad has said Hong Kong just released a compliance review for ICOs. The ECB is going to wait and see for the regulations. I think everybody is waiting to see what everyone else is going to do, if that makes sense. It's, in times, if you look at, for example, China, great example, they were so scared at the rate of which ICOs and the crypto market were moving, they would have come up with legislation had they had the time, but they didn't. And quite simply, instead, what they did is they prohibited it. And we've seen the same thing, a touch of that in South Korea as well. I think that this is all a bit of a wait and see game for a lot of these regulators, there's no doubt. Okay, Caspers has now asked, will Astronaut do something more besides investing in ICOs to help projects get off the ground and become successful? That's an interesting question. At this point in time, I can't say that it's on our short-term roadmap. I couldn't say that. I would say that what you're talking about probably sounds more like a quasi-accelerator in helping these get off the ground. Fact of the matter is that we don't really want to have to get our hands dirty in doing that. Our goal as Astronaut is simply to conduct due diligence and find great investment opportunities. I think trying to spread our mandate any more than that, particularly with a market that's growing as much as it is going to be pretty difficult. But it's a good question. Thanks, Caspers. Okay, so Rocket Salads asks, does Astronaut have any plans to adhere to any and all compliancy reviews to become a regulated security? So there's a reason why we haven't actually offered Astronaut not only to the US, but also to Singapore, in fact, where I am right now. We are currently in the process of also licensing. Now, that is a big move for us because at the end of the day, we believe that if Astronaut is going to be a leader in this space, which we're very confident it is, then effectively we need to comply with regulations. And we do want investors from the US, and we do want investors from Singapore, etc. And if licensing is the only way to do that, then it is what it is. And that's why we've already started that journey. Now, as of today, can we take US investors? Unfortunately not, because that does take time to go through those licensing initiatives. But we certainly will be adhering to all of those compliancy reviews, as you said, yeah. Okay, Liam has asked, dividend reinvestment options instead of quarterly payouts. Great question, and I think that this is something that some of the token holders right now have certainly been, it's sort of a 50-50 divide, because a lot of people want to be able to reinvest the token, reinvest the dividends, I should say. And usually what would happen in that form is we would look to it's usually done via a token buyback. So effectively, based on the performance, we would buy back a certain amount of tokens from the market and then effectively cancel those tokens. Okay, so you gain a larger percentage ownership of Astronaut. But it's at the moment, we're at this 50-50 divide between token holders. Now we, as it's set in stone right now, are paying the dividends out every quarter in Ethereum. And that will go out to the wallet that you're nominating. Now, for a reinvestment, we're looking at suitable ways to do that. It's a technical issue more than anything in doing both, not just one or the other. So we will have to get back to you on that one. We know that there's certainly a lot of people that do want to just reinvest. So it is on the top of our list, and we're investigating at the moment. So thanks for the question. Okay. Another question here. Is there a relationship between the post-ICO pop and the time between the end of an ICO and when it lists on the exchange? So I think one of the biggest contributors to significant fluctuation once things get on the exchange is, number one, which exchange it's on, because that obviously determines the liquidity. But number two, how the sale was structured. And of course, we've all heard of some of these token sales with doing significant bonuses that are way above or discounts the other way around for private investors or pre-sales almost. And that can sometimes create a situation where a lot of those people are trying to capitalize straight off the bat. So as soon as it lists on the exchange, then effectively they're wanting to sell to secure that capital gain, and then it goes down for everybody else. And that is certainly an issue. So it's really having a look at who are the initial, we call them cornerstone investors. Who are the cornerstone investors in an ICO, and have they raised money? You can either raise money, you can raise smart money. Okay, so raising money is basically getting anybody through the door to get your pre-sale and private sale done, and then your ICO done, etc. But raising smart money is money that is what we call sticky, which is effectively investors that are in it for the medium to longer term and aren't looking to liquidate as soon as they see a 10% gain on the exchange. So I would say that that's one of the biggest contributing factors when you see this volatility as soon as something lists on an exchange. So it's a good question. Okay. Next one. Can you start with a general overview of Astronaut? I should have done that way before. We should be reordering these questions. I apologize for that. I'll give you the 1-minute pitch of Astronaut, seeing as I'm halfway through now. This has been a very unstructured AMA, as you can see. So Astronaut, in brief, we started Piccolo Research a year ago, okay? And Piccolo is a due diligence company for blockchain ICOs specifically. And within Piccolo, we've had 4.5 people, I'll say, that has been doing this analysis for a number of months out to the public market. Prior to that, we were doing it privately for high net worth investors, and then we took it public, which, you know, in that time, a lot of people on this video now also joined us. And what we were doing is we were simply conducting very specialized but simple due diligence on a lot of ICOs that were coming up, because, you know, we saw that there's a real need for transparency and credibility in this market. There really is. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of people who are providing it. And those who are providing it or trying to provide it, a lot of them get paid to do it. So we had this idea to set up basically the first non-remunerated, I won't call it a ratings agency, but research arm for blockchain ICOs. Now, we grew to a substantial database from that, which was fantastic. We got a lot of happy subscribers. And from there, we figured out their pain points with regards to investing in ICOs. And, you know, from our perspective and from theirs, after analyzing what they had to say in their feedback, we understood that actually participating in ICOs isn't that easy, in terms of not just getting into them at the right time in the pre-sale, etc., but also maintaining them, getting out of them, etc. All of these are things that, to be honest, can be a full-time job, and that's on top of research if you're really wanting to do well in this market. And so that was the basis of why we started Astronaut. And from there, the concept of Astronaut is simply utilizing what we have within Piccolo Research, okay? Utilizing that research, but on a whole nother level, okay? So actually creating a basket of ICOs and instruments within the blockchain market, okay, in the crypto market, and giving every token holder an exposure to a piece of that. That's simply what it is. And off the back of that, you've of course got dividends that are paid quarterly based on the profits. And then you also have, you've got the upside in the Astro tokens as well, which will be listed. And that upside is dictated also by performance, which is assets under management. Okay, so I hope that gives you a brief overview. Sure, we'll try to, there's a question there asking if we'll upload a transcript. We'll do that as well, yeah. Okay, what advice do you have for anyone starting a new ICO? I would say don't follow the crowd, okay? There's a lot of hype in this market. And it's very easy to be influenced by the likes of Reddit and Bitcoin Talk or Steamer, etc. And you know, everybody sees it. They see in their Facebook feed. They see advertisements there on Google. They see advertisements. It's very easy to be influenced by that, and also and get excited by it. And following the crowd isn't always the great thing to do. I suppose that's one of the biggest tips that I have. Do your own research. I say that, but effectively we're doing all the research for you. But to any new beginner, a part of this or not, a part of Astronaut or not, do your own research. Because that is truly how you're going to stay comfortable with an investment, by making the decision yourself and not, or at least understanding the decision, and not just believing somebody that's on Reddit or a YouTube influencer or anything like that. I think that's very important. Okay, next question. Okay, we have, wow, there's a lot here. Okay, going through them. Okay, how do you differ from TAS? So for those of you who don't know, TAS is a crypto fund that launched quite a few months ago now, probably closer to 6 months ago. And TAS is quite similar to us from a technical point of view, actually. They also have a dividend component, which they distribute quarterly. And TAS have a trading strategy or investment philosophy where they do participate in some ICOs, but they also do a lot of exchange trading as well. And I suppose their investment timeline is actually quite short. They tend to liquidate things quite quickly. But in saying that, they have done really well. So TAS, from memory, they raised about 9 million. And by the end of it, I think they put about 8 million into the market. And they, at the moment, would be at close to 40, last time I looked, it was high 30s market cap, so about 39 million. So they've done 4 times what their initial market cap was in a space of 6 months, which is really good. It is. I suppose the difference is for us being Astronaut is that we're trying to take a more, number one, transparent approach. So they release quarterly reports. Our intention is to basically release weekly, close to daily reports on our movements, if there are movements. So one thing for us is transparency, but the other thing is also research. And as you know, a lot of you are familiar with Piccolo Research. That's one of the things that we hold in very high importance to do with our particular strategy is having that research arm that's able to come up with the appropriate investment decisions. And I think that is certainly one of the key differentiators as to what we have. Not only that, but our portfolio within Astronaut is more specifically focused on ICOs, private sales and pre-sales, etc. Whereas TAS is very spread, so to say. They're in a little bit of everything. But nonetheless, they have done a great job. I can't fault them on that at all. Okay, so next question. What are the jobs or professions that you think smart contracts will impact first? My first thought on this is, which we've been talking about for a while and seeing a lot in the market, is actually legal. Whether it's conveyancing, transfer of property, just legal contracts, wills. I think that's the first to be disrupted. And if you have a look at the amount of real world applications of blockchain, that's where it's all happening right now. It's actually legal. And it's also, the good thing about legal is it's a great one to monetize as well. A lot of these smart contracts that are aiming towards that legal side of the market, in doing legal smart contracts, they can be monetized very quickly if they've got a great product. And so that's why we've actually seen a lot of them come to market recently. Okay, next question. Do you feel there is a misconception about regulations if and when they come? If your token is considered security, would you just need to be in compliance with any new regulations to continue? That's effectively correct, yeah. So right now we have stayed away from such jurisdictions that have outright said that they don't want their citizens or taxpaying residents involved in anything that may possibly be considered as security. But even so, I think that this goes beyond anything that could be considered security. This actually comes back to all ICOs, whether they're a security or not. And I feel that not just us, but everybody else within this whole ecosystem of token sales will need to effectively comply with upcoming regulations. I've got no doubt about that, if they want to be around for the long run. Okay, next question is from Stash the Crypto. What has been your biggest hurdle during the ICO? I think one of the hardest things at the moment about the ICO is certainly, and I think anybody that's doing an ICO would actually say the same, is right now is getting a voice in the market. And I say that simply because there are the amount of ICOs that are currently being conducted right now is phenomenal. There is a lot out there. And I think that it is getting harder and harder. While we believe we have an amazing concept that's going to benefit a lot of people, it's getting harder and harder to have a voice within the market. And you will note, and our analysis and other analysis that we've read has dictated very much the same, is that with the volume of ICOs, or token sales, that are coming out every month, it's very hard to get your point across. Now, a lot of token sales come out and spend millions of dollars in marketing just to bring in more ether to get a bigger raising, and we simply don't agree with that, or at least not for us anyways, to what we're doing. We have done this extremely lean, and so I think that the hardest thing about an ICO right now, due to the volume of them, being quite honest, is simply gaining a voice. And we've been very fortunate because we've obviously had an existing business, which is Piccolo Research, that has helped us, and we've got some great token holders that have also spread the word, and we thank them very much for that. That has been, it's been great to have them on board, and without them, it would have been extremely difficult. But essentially, that's probably the hardest part about an ICO right now. And this wouldn't have been the case, for example, 6 months ago. But when you look at the whole ecosystem and the volume that's exploding throughout it, it's certainly changing every month. There's no doubt about that. Okay, next one. So we've got, let me read here. Good question, good question. Stash the crypto. I'm going to have to skip a couple because I've just done about 3 of yours. I'll come back to them soon, okay? Peter has asked, are there concrete investment prospects or targets in the pipeline for the 4th quarter? And would you give any commentary on Chainlink and AirSwap as you recently, as we recently did strong buy recommendations on them? Okay. Number 1, for the concrete investment prospects and targets, we are, as Astronaut, already talking to a number of upcoming prospects, I suppose you can say, that we feel are going to be great investments. Now, I can't advise them on here because if we do, the word will get out very quickly. We will be able to tell you very soon after our allocations are secure on behalf of all token holders what they are. But there are, in this 4th quarter, there are some amazing opportunities coming up. And we've been looking at them for quite some time. These haven't just come up recently. So one of the reasons that we pulled the trigger on doing this rather fast was because we knew that there is a really great pipeline of potential investments that we want to get into. So as such, that's all coming up. So you'll know that in the next couple of weeks, okay? Your other question was commentary on Chainlink and AirSwap. We still maintain buys on them. And as you know, I think Chainlink, if you got in early at about 11 to 12 cents, it ran up to about, close to, high 30s and 40s as well. Right now, it's down to around 30 cents. Now, we actually put out, for Piccolo Research subscribers, we put out maybe 2 days ago a recommendation, because Astronaut doesn't have exposure in it. This is prior to Astronaut. We put out a recommendation to change the stop loss for it. So one thing that you will learn, and we'll be holding some more webinars about this, etc., is that when we get into a position, we have what they call a stop loss. And that is effectively you call it a cutoff point to liquidate the position. And there's no negative connotation to it because it doesn't mean that you're liquidating at a loss or anything like that. So we've advised effectively to put in a stop loss at 29 cents, right? And if Chainlink comes down to 29 cents, then you liquidate the position, and effectively you've made 3 times the money or close to 3 times the money at 11 cents or so. But on that, doing that doesn't necessarily mean we have a negative view of it. It simply means that when you look at technical analysis in investing, when things break what we call a support level, okay, it means that they have the ability to go down a lot further. And we do believe in crystallizing profits, although we don't want to trade too actively. We believe in crystallizing profits. So something that Astronaut will be doing quite a bit is we don't just buy into something and then just pray and hope that it goes up. And then it does go up and then it falls and you go into a loss. That's not our intention at all. So with Astronaut, risk management is one of those key things in being a successful investor, and knowing when to cut a trade, not necessarily a losing trade, but even a trade that is profitable, because you don't want your profits to turn into nothing and then nothing to turn into loss. That's the worst thing that can happen. AirSwap, Peter, it's super early days. I mean, I think it's only been on Liqui for what, 2 or 3 days. It's way too early to tell, and I think for that, it's trading around the ICO price around 30 cents or so. It's been fluctuating around there. I wouldn't be touching it right now. I mean, hold on to it. If you've bought it, I wouldn't be cutting it or anything. It's certainly for us a long-term hold, as well as a short and medium term. I think in the short term, as our analysts have looked at it, there is going to be a lot of volume and liquidity through it, and we believe there's going to be a lot of upside. So keep that one on there. Don't look to cut it anytime soon. Okay, next question, shall we? What is your background? What makes you qualified to consult on ICOs? It's a good question. So I myself, we've got a whole team, but I myself started in what they call analyzing pink sheets, if you like, or small cap analysis. This started actually in Australia. I ran one of the largest small cap research firms, and what we did is very similar to Piccolo Research. We looked at companies that were a market cap of anywhere between $1 and $10 million, okay, that were going for an IPO, and it would be about basically pulling those companies apart, doing due diligence, and being able to analyze them, the good and the bad and the ugly, and understand whether they're investment worthy or not. Now, that experience, and that's only where I started, but that experience is extremely similar to the ICO market, because you're dealing with analysis of companies that aren't always transparent. There's not a lot of information. Most of the time they're at concept stage. They're certainly not established. And all of those things are almost exactly the same as the ICO market. So that's actually where we started. Now, since that time, I've also run equities funds management as well, and also from a venture capital background. The rest of the team, who I'm going to get on another live stream soon as well, the rest of the team, for example, Scott as an investment analyst, and also has a background in development as well. Mike as well, same thing. So he also comes from a development background, but highly analytical. All of these guys have and the rest of the team in our operational have come from, in effect, equities backgrounds in finance, as well as a portion of technical development as well. And we feel that that sort of experience within ICOs gives us a different look on things. And it's where we can really truly apply some fundamental analysis based on our previous history in analyzing some of these other segments of the market. Okay, Jonathan, does Astronaut have plans to hire additional staff, local remote advisors? We have brought on a few more people recently. Not, however, remote just as yet. So if there's send us an email and we'll certainly keep you in mind, okay? Thanks for that, Jonathan. Okay, question, when do token holders get paid for the first quarter? Late December or sometime early 2018. First quarter is actually late December. So we're not expecting, because it doesn't work out to be a full quarter, obviously, but the important thing is that we're establishing a consistency in the dividend distribution, and hence why we've chosen December, end of December. So effectively, that's going to be prorated, based on what we've got at that point in time. It's not going to be as large as what we anticipate on other quarters, given the length of time. Okay, wow, a lot of questions here. So, when we get to the moon, can I buy you a drink? And what's your favorite? Good question. What drink? Martini, dry. Can't go past it. For an early stage, I've got a question here. For an early stage project with a solid team, an interesting white paper, what is an attractive cap? It depends what they're doing. I mean, I think that what we really like is seeing ICOs that are raising between 5 and 20 to 25. I mean, we believe that's a sweet spot because the participation rate of them is generally quite good. They don't need to get huge whales in to get it funded, and they don't run the risk of then those whales dumping the tokens on the market. We believe that that's sort of the niche sort of area that's really good, and also has the opportunity to go much higher. You look at earlier in the year, a lot of those ICOs that were doing even negative 10 million, so anywhere between 3 and 8 million, have done extremely well since then. So smaller caps, market caps, are sometimes a lot better. Okay, going to keep going on. Simon King, I think that's just a question. You might want to just email us for that. For the dividend, Simon King's asked, do I automatically participate in those every quarter? You do. And they're sent to where your tokens are, your Astro tokens. You'll have to verify those with us. So the compatible wallets for you are MyEther wallet. Any ERC20 compatible is going to be fine for that, okay? Okay, Mr. Heston is asking, how's your app development doing? Will we see it in December? You will. So actually, we're ahead of schedule, which is great. As some of you know, as you've seen it, we have been doing some work on the web app first, which is something that we need to, I suppose, get done first because we have to hook up the API to the actual app itself on the phone. So we will have the web app, we're hoping late November, and then very early December. iOS users will be very happy. Android, unfortunately, guys, won't be until roughly late January, okay? So December, we're expecting for that first iOS app to launch. All right. Another question. What total market cap for crypto will concern you that the market was in a similar state to the dot-com crash? I think a lot of people are using this comparison to the dot-com crash. And quite simply, I don't necessarily agree with it. I think that there's obviously a lot of volume that has come into this market very, very quickly. And we're seeing, market caps of Bitcoin, et cetera, go up substantially. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're in a bubble that's going to explode anytime soon. The definition of the bubble is when we're getting a lot of real stupid general market money coming into this, okay? The interesting thing about this whole ICO ecosystem, cryptocurrency ecosystem, is that it's not really that accessible for your everyday person. Okay, you're thinking about the aging populations in the US and in Europe, everywhere around the world. Not only do they not know about what cryptocurrency is most of the time, but even if they did, it's very hard to actually get into it and purchase it. And so we're not seeing the entire market get into this. We're only seeing one small segment. And I think that that's what's really interesting. It's also a very big opportunity and somewhat of a positive outlook. But there is no doubt that we've seen very, very large volume and increases that you couldn't really imagine a few years ago in getting into this market at all, and many people didn't. But that's not to say that it's a bubble, and so we're not concerned. We do acknowledge that the market is going to go through highs and lows. That's what markets do. Okay, if they didn't, they wouldn't be markets, and they would be severely manipulated. But there's no doubt that we will see a lot of volatility. We will see fluctuations. We will see downside in some of these major cryptos, and the sooner you come to that realization, the sooner you can start implementing strategies to ensure that the downside doesn't feel so bad. And that's what's really important in the market. Okay. Next question. If you think there'll be money to be made in trading, would it take priority over ICOs? At the moment, we believe that there's a lot more opportunity in the market in ICOs, not necessarily in trading. Okay, trading is short-term trading can be very speculative. If we were to buy something that's on the exchange already, and we do plan to, it will be something that fundamentally we feel is undervalued. We wouldn't be doing it simply because it's been sold down a lot, or because the chart looks good and like a hockey stick. That we don't have an intention of doing that. It's strategically putting money into liquid assets like that on the exchange, but maintaining or knowing that you've got a very positive fundamental view on it in the coming 6 to 12, 18 months. Something that we really like, and I think it's fine that I say it on here at the moment, is Ripple. It's enormous potential, particularly fundamentally, and having a look at some of those that haven't had the gains that we've seen in others, there's interesting places to park some of the allocation of the fund. There's no doubt about that, because not 100% can go into ICOs, nor would we want it to. So it's a good question there. When will the tokens be released? They'll be released on about the 20, I think 1 to 2 days after they can be traded out. So it should be about the 26th or 27th of this month. So rather soon, we're getting there. Mr. T, do you think your ICO will sell out? And if not, what will happen to Astro's market cap since the remaining tokens will be burned? So effectively, we just start at a lower market cap, burning the rest of the tokens, which for us is well, for everybody, it doesn't make too much of a difference in terms of how we actually allocate funds into the market at all. So really, it's just starting off a lower base, but it doesn't change anything with regards to our investment strategy or even our development of the investor tools. So it just means that we're starting from a lower market cap. That's it. Okay, Frank has asked, when can we expect instructions on how to move the tokens from order book to MyEther wallet? That'll be coming this week, actually. Sorry, when I say this week, I mean Sunday or Monday. You'll be receiving those instructions, because I think by about Thursday, you'll be able to transfer them out. So we'll give you specific instructions on that, okay? Jonathan's asked, can I leave my Astro tokens in order book, and for how long? Look, you can. There's actually no rush to move them out. It's just that some people would rather. To collect the dividends, we plan to have another wallet basically ready by the end of the year, which is December. So we're hoping by that time you'll actually be able to transfer your Astro to a different wallet and keep them there and just collect the dividends. In any other instance, you can also send them to any ERC20 compatible wallet. So that's really not an issue. Mr. Heston, I really like how you're reassuring investors with all the info, AMA, Telegram. Thanks very much. Okay, Simon has asked, what is the potential of return on investment? We would love to put, I'd love to come out here with the figure and tell you the percentage that we think that we're going to make, but we don't want to put that expectation out there. We're very confident, and I say that only because of our track record, and you can go back and have a look at that. In fact, one of the guys from Coin Remix actually did an analysis on our recommendations this year. And he assumed that it was all of the buys that we had, we were still holding, which obviously isn't right. But nonetheless, he assumed that we hadn't exited any. And you can see basically what his ROI that he came up with on that. And I think on the buys, it was about 150% per trade, which was a buy. And we, going into that analysis more, we can tell you it's much higher. But effectively, we have very high expectations of ourselves. I know that that's how our subscribers, both from Piccolo and now on Astronaut, have very high expectations of us. And, we're going to do our best, obviously, to live up to them. Okay, Ben has asked, what percentage of your net worth do you have in crypto? What percentage do you advise unsophisticated investors to use? Okay. I would say, well, in terms of net worth, you're talking, when I think of crypto, I think of liquid assets, okay? So I think of, for example, how much you've got if you've got share market or whether you've got fixed cash savings, etc. And let me just start by saying, before I answer this question, none of this is advice, okay? So it's not financial, because I don't want to get into that, or you knocking on Astronaut's door anytime soon. We believe that effectively the crypto market is volatile. There's no doubt about that. And in light of that, it's important that exposure to it, out of all of the liquid assets that you have, at the highest should be no more than 20%, 25%. That's something that really comes down to how comfortable you are with it. And as they say, particularly with crypto. But I mean, it's the same thing when you're talking about penny stocks or pink sheets or anything else. Small cap stocks is only invest what you can actually afford to lose, and that's no matter what you're actually putting your money into, any investment. It's important that you live by that So I hope that sort of answers your question there. Ben? Hi, James. Hi, Frank. Okay, so I'll answer a couple more questions, and then we'll have to wrap it up, guys. Frank has asked, I think that the crypto market is just at the beginning of its growth. When the market becomes more accessible to a normal investor, there's a huge pile of money waiting to float in. That's what I was saying before, yeah. That's why I think that we aren't in the bubble that everybody is thinking, because when the actual normal everyday person on the street that's walking around can get access to crypto and can, get into ICOs or tokens, whatever they want to do, that's when you know that things are really starting to lift off, and it's involving the whole market. And it's very different to the scenario back in the dot-com boom. Okay. Do you know if okay, so for cold storage, yeah, you'll need to lodge it for the dividend date on my Ether wallet or anything like that. That'll be important if you've got hardware that you're putting Astro tokens onto. Okay. Thanks, Jonathan. Great. 8 months. Fantastic. Okay. Mr. Heston, what are your reasons that you're registering? And so Switzerland for us is more so, we're looking at the licensing requirements there. I mean, we're looking at licensing we're going through the process actually right now of licensing in several jurisdictions. And as one of our first as well, as Singapore is Switzerland is somewhere that in terms of incorporation as well, works to our advantage. And the jurisdiction there, particularly in the financial services and licensing, is actually quite good and usually remains quite consistent. Although they do have somewhat similar sort of mentality to Singapore as well. But we just see it as a strategic jurisdiction to base it out of effectively. So good question. Graham's asked, how do you plan to exit your larger than average investor positions in ICOs? Will it be a gradual release? Yeah, that comes down to liquidity. Sometimes using certain limit orders and ensuring that we're filled at a certain price, and that does mean offloading in parcels. You can't just sell one whole lot that's substantial. Let's say it's 1,000 Ether for something that isn't very liquid. And so being able to sell those off gradually over a period of, well, depending on what the volume is of the ICO, that's really important. And obviously, failing to do, then you'll run the risk of very large spreads in what you're buying and selling for, and obviously that affects the bottom line. Matt's asked, what are you invested in outside of Astronaut? If we're talking about ICOs, we have invested small amounts over time in various ICOs. We haven't done any, in fact, that we've reported on, because we're not allowed to as analysts, I suppose. Now that we're within Astronaut, then we can, as long as we advise it as well. Outside of ICOs, I'm certainly all cryptocurrency right now. How long does Astronaut intend to run? 10 years. There was an interview yesterday that I had that asked me, where is Astronaut going to be in 5 years? And I sort of thought about it for a moment, and I thought, geez, that's a really hard question to answer. Effectively the rate at which this market is moving and where it could be in 5 years or even 1 year or 2 years, it's really hard to say. We plan on growing Astronaut into one of the biggest listed vehicles and funds within the whole crypto market, and no matter how it changes. So we're going to be around as long as it takes, effectively. Okay, I'll answer the last question, and I'm probably going to have to wrap it up, but we will be we'll be doing more of these soon, guys. So, okay, so last one from Graham. The white paper lists 50% of funds to invest in ICO, 25 to holding liquid crypto. What strategies will you be using in holding liquid crypto, selling at all-time highs, and buying the dip, for example? Selling at all-time highs and buying the dip. So there's a couple of ways to look at this, right? If you get some time, I'm going to recommend a book that's really interesting, and this is actually one of the reasons why I got into the crypto market. Is I used a technical trading strategy, and I'm only saying this because you mentioned the all-time highs things. Sell when it gets to a highest point because it might go back down. Contrary to what you might think, holding things at all times highs when it breaks out through a previous highs isn't necessarily a bad thing. At Piccolo Research, we use both fundamental analysis, which is huge for ICOs, but when you look at how to manage a trade and exit it, what's really important is also technical analysis as well. Read a book, or at least look it up. You can get it for free actually on the internet. It's a really interesting one. It's called Turtle Trading. And that's actually a method that I use purely just for cryptocurrencies, for Bitcoin that I used it, which was effectively a way to buy into a stock or commodity or Bitcoin, could be anything, when it reaches a high. Most people will be selling when it gets to a high, but the amount of times that a Bitcoin, we'll use Bitcoin as the example, will surpass its high and keep going is unimaginable. And if it doesn't, then it's about cutting your losses very short as well. So it's just a very interesting question that you've got there, because I can see that currently the market is obviously, a lot of people get scared when things reach all-time highs and they sell. But that's not necessarily the way to do it, because if it keeps going, you're missing out on a lot. So we call that implementation of a trailing stop loss that moves as it goes up. We'll talk more about that later. Okay, I think that wraps it up. Matt, thoughts on moving all your fiat currency into crypto today? Not just yet, okay? I wouldn't advise anybody do that just yet, quite honestly. I believe in crypto more than anyone, but at the same time, there is no doubt that there's a lot of swings in this market. And nobody wants the stress of 100% of their wealth going into the 20% swings that we see too often. So that's really important. Great. Everyone, thanks very much for joining. It's been a pleasure. I apologize we started off a little bit late. It's been great. Well, our ICO wraps up next week. Thanks very much for everybody who's participated. Tell your friends. We've only got a few days left. Yes, there will be a recording that we'll put out. Fantastic. Yep. And I'll send that out via email and the Telegram, etc., and our social media channels. It's been great. It's Friday. We'll be working all weekend if you need us, but time for everybody else to go out for a drink. Enjoy, guys. Thanks very much for that. And we look forward to a great journey together, and wrapping this all up and kicking off our investment as of, well, next week. Okay? Perfect. Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Attilio. Attilio, the book was called The Turtle Traders, I think it was called. Turtle, like the animal. Yeah. Turtle Trading, that's it. Check it out. Really good book. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. See you.